Welcome into part 3 of the Week 15 preview of the fantasy playoffs. A lot of matchups, no more teams on bye, so we're talking about 15 matchups. Already gone over 10. We got 5 more to go. Brian, I didn't ask you about the what your opinions about the stat correction Thursday morning. Jared Goff given a fumble. What's your overall thoughts on that? I know it didn't affect. I don't think it really affected. There's a league where it affected a win-loss record for mine, but I don't think it affected the playoffs. But I'm sure a lot of people missed the playoffs or made the playoffs because of it. What's your overall thoughts on that? It kind of sucks.
Yeah, it definitely does suck. And I don't know if that's like a later time for stat corrections than normal. Because I feel like in one of my leagues, like it says like, oh, like all the stat corrections have come in like for this week. It might be on like MFL. I can't remember which platform it is. And I want to say it's like before waivers run. So I don't know if there's like a limit certain platforms give, which might be probably the right answer. Like maybe it shouldn't go all the way till Thursday. I don't know. But I mean, what's the typical time for stat corrections to come in? Like they can't come in now, right? For last week.
I don't think so. I think Thursday morning is kind of the latest. And I woke up to it Thursday morning, so I don't know when exactly it came through. Well, that was 5-6 o'clock West Coast time in the morning that when I woke up and I saw it. So Thursday morning's pretty late. I remember I've definitely seen them Wednesdays before, like post waivers and all that. But I don't think I've ever seen a fumble change as well. Like it's always what you usually see is passes that were called passes, but then they realized they were backward. They ruled them as backward passes, and so it changes passing yards or a complete point per reception or something like that. So I've never seen a fumble, which is 2 points. I don't think I've ever seen a stat correction that big. So
well, I was gonna say if they change like a pass, like you said, like especially if it went for 10 yards, it's like, well, that's pretty major too. Like there's 2 points right there. But I don't really know.
It would be a point if it's reception for the player catching it, right? Like minus a point, or for the quarterback, it would only be like half a point or.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true because they're still getting yardage.
Yeah, you still get the yardage. You just don't get the reception for the guy receiving it, and then the quarterback doesn't get whatever passing yards that is. Yeah.
I don't know what you're supposed to do as a commissioner. Like, I mean, I don't think. Is there a good place to like go look where it's like, okay, what are the stat corrections that happen in case you have to like manually do it? I feel like it's like up to the platform that you're playing on, like unless something like as high profile as that comes up. But I feel like if you're gonna like manually change it, because like to like reflect before like playoff games start or something, if it hasn't shown up on your platform, and then I feel like you're almost like opening up Pandora's box. Like it's like, well, now you have to watch out for all stat corrections, kind of like at least in close matchups.
Yeah.
I just feel like it puts a huge burden on you as a commissioner if you're going to manually change anything. Because I think it sets the precedent where it's like, well, I don't know. Maybe it's on the player. Maybe it's on the player, like the actual manager themselves to like look for stat corrections in their favor kind of a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it does come through. It should automatically update for it. I think it's the right move. Like you have to, if a matchup was decided or if you have to change a playoff team because that's you got to roll with the stat correction. It's like, well, Goff fumbled, like you can't just say, no, we're not going to, it's Thursday morning. We're not going to count that, like you definitely have to, okay, he fumbled, that goes into his point total. Like, and if it has to change a win to a loss or a playoff team missing the playoffs or making the playoffs, like, I think it's only fair, That's like, I'm just looking at it now. There's not many stat corrections like week 13, 12, no stat corrections, 10. There's maybe one or two each week at the most. So, and a lot of it's kickoff return stuff, or it's very minor. Like Geno Smith passing yards changed from 323 to 326. So in week 6 or something, like so pretty minor stuff, fumble yards and things like that.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily against the stat corrections counting. I'm just saying, like, what if it didn't like update already, and like it's like, are you supposed to like do it yourself? Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's like it can open like a whole can of worms. It's kind of funny too that such a major correction came literally the week before the playoffs started, so it can like totally like affect things like way more than normal, or at least more obviously affect things more than normal, you know, because wins, losses, like throughout the season, like you don't necessarily think about like the playoff implications of losing a game in week 2. You know, it's like, oh, I got plenty of time, but it's like that game can totally affect if you make the playoffs or not, just the same.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we're going to get into the last 5 matchups here, going over some fringe players, hopefully help you in the playoffs. So the first game we're looking at is the 49ers Cardinals game. And generally an easy game, especially when talking about the 49ers. You start all of them. They're all doing really well. They're all just the most efficient team in the NFL by far. You know, Purdy is probably a top 5-6 quarterback at this point. Like, you know, the names, we're not starting him over Allen, Dak, Hurts, Lamar. I still wouldn't start him over Mahomes. If you want to, that's fine. We talked about that yesterday. Obviously Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, McCaffrey, all of these guys are starts. It's amazing that you have the number 1 running back. You have almost two top 12 receivers. Ayuk's 12, Debo's 13. Debo's actually been better, but he missed a couple games. Kittle's a top 3 tight end. Purdy's a top 5 quarterback. It's crazy, you know? Like,
yeah.
I didn't think all these guys could be. I thought we'd get like one of the receivers and maybe in the top 12, 15. You know, obviously McCaffrey, Kittle, top 5. I didn't think both receivers would be potentially top 12. So pretty impressive stuff. So yeah, they're always must starts. Like Debo can do it with 5 touches, you know, like it's pretty crazy. And the Cardinals side, like I'm not really. It's Trey McBride is the only must start in my opinion on this team right now. I don't know if Marquise Brown's going to play. He was limited on Friday, so he's questionable. Even if he does, do you want to start Marquise Brown this week, potentially limited?
Not especially. I mean, he could be like a desperation flex option, you know, because we've seen him be good with Kyler in the past. We haven't really seen it this year, except for 1 week, basically. But I mean,
yeah,
you know, him and Kyler have chemistry for sure. It's like that's better than Godwin as far as he plays. You know, like he has chemistry with the quarterback and he plays. You know, if he plays.
Yeah, I mean, it's 1 out of 3 that he's done well, right? You can't really count last game, which was 2 weeks ago, where he left early. It looks like. So yeah, 1 out of 3, but it did really seem like they were trying to get him the ball, 12 targets. And there was another game in there. I think it was the first game, might've been the Houston game, where I'm trying to remember. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Kyler came back for the Atlanta game. So I think it was the Atlanta game where, Kyler should have connected with Marquise Brown on like a 30-yard touchdown. So it would have looked a lot better. It would have been like 2 for 58 and a touchdown, you know?
Yeah. It definitely hasn't been pretty, but we've seen it be pretty before. But like I said, like, yeah, desperation flex, like there's some potential there, but I wouldn't bank on it, you know?
Yeah. And then in terms of starting Kyler, like I know we've talked about it a lot with these quarterbacks. Are we definitely starting guys like Love, Wilson, Howe, Goff over Kyler? It definitely starts over him. A tough matchup for him.
Yeah, I think so. Just because of the matchup. Yeah, we've talked about it quite a bit. Like, yeah, I mean, I like all those guys better.
Yeah. Tua. Would you start Kyler over Tua?
Without Tyreek? Do we know?
Let's say without Tyreek. We don't know yet.
I'll start Kyler.
Yeah, I might start him either way, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. I just remembered as I pulled it up. I'm like, oh yeah, they are playing the Jets. Yeah, definitely Kyler.
Mm-hmm. What about Lawrence
but...
against Baltimore?
Yeah, I'll start Lawrence too. I was gonna say he has all his weapons, which that's not exactly true, but he has most of them. So
yeah, I would say most good quarterbacks have actually done okay against the 49ers. Like they shut down Pickett. Stafford had 16 points and 4 point per passing touchdown. That's fine. They shut down Daniel Jones. Josh Dobbs had a big game because of his rushing. 12 for 48. They shut down Dak, and then it was PJ Walker. Cousins had over 22 points. Burrow had over 27 points. They shut down Lawrence. They shut down Baker. They shut down Geno, and then Hurts and Drew Lock. And Hurts had almost 24. Drew Lock had over 17. So I'd say most good quarterbacks. They shut down a couple good quarterbacks in there, but I don't know. It feels like most of them have done all right.
Yeah.
And Kyler's one of those, like, he's matchup proof. So I don't hate it over guys like Lawrence, Tua, even Goff to a certain extent. But for the safer side, I'd probably lean for Goff, more upside with Kyler. And then James Conner is another one. Again, tough matchup, like 49ers. I'm just going to double check this. Yeah, second fewest points to running backs. They've really shut down recently as well. Like ETN did nothing. Rashad White had 15 points. Charbonnet did nothing. The Philly guys did nothing. Again, the Seattle guys did nothing. So they have kind of, since their bye week, maybe gotten healthy. There's only been one running back in their last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 matchups that have done something. So where are you at with James Conner? Are you worried about him this week?
Yeah, you definitely should be worried, but I think you can flex him for sure, given the hard matchup. But it looks like he could be heading back towards like his workhorse role. Like he played 76% of the snaps before their bye week, lots of carries and everything. And we know he can be involved in the passing game, which has been like a little spotty since he came back. But I mean, 3, 5, and 2 targets, which kind of like if Rashad White can put up 15 points against them, I'd say James Conner could do the same. So there's a potential, like the ceiling's not super high, but I'd say the ceiling is at least 15. But the floor it could be 5, so definitely be worried if you're starting him. But I mean, as a flex with a little bit higher ceiling than your normal guy, I don't mind that.
Yeah. My only concern, and you did talk about the 76%. That's basically since he's come back. If you look at the 2 games, like they were winning that game and they were kind of winning handedly, and they were able to just run it down their throat. But he still hasn't been involved in like third downs and stuff. Like it's been Michael Carter. So this could be a game where they just start getting blown out. So it's tough. I would play guys like Gibson over him if I had to choose. I know it's already passed, but I would have played Zamir White over Connor, I think, just because I'm worried Connor could have like 5 points, So it's definitely concern there.
Fair enough.
Anyone else? I mean, we already talked about McBride is the start, so.
No, I think that's it.
So then the next game, the Commanders at the Rams, over under 50.5. By the way, 48 over under for that 49ers Cardinals game. I was a little surprised by that. I don't know if 49ers are favored by 12, but I thought it'd be closer to like under like 45 or under 45. But Commanders Rams is 50.5. I believe that's the tied for the highest this week. Minus 6.5 is the over under. Commanders side of things, we've talked about Howe as like a low end QB1 in this game. I think he can kind of get back to what he had been doing. He's QB6 on the year. Yeah, actually, I thought he was playing a little worse. He's been really good the last 5 weeks. At least 18 points or more in 3 games over 20 points. So that's really good. So I like Howe as a low end QB1 here. Antonio Gibson we like because no Brian Robinson. So where are you putting Gibson? Like RB2 status? Are you playing him over like Chuba, Najee, Ford, Chandler?
Yeah, I think I'll play him over all those guys. He is kind of like in that conversation for sure, I'd say. He's going to get the workload. Like he's been getting 5 or 6 targets every game with Brian Robinson. So I don't expect that to change too much. Like, but I think his snap share should go up. And yeah, we'll see some more rushing floor from him. But yeah, I like him as a number 2 running back.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, my only slight concern is like, what if they just use him the same way? Like, I know he played almost 60% of the snaps in that game and had the most carries that he had all year. But there is something to when there's a big difference when you lose a guy in the middle of a game versus okay, now you've had 2 weeks to prepare with the backups and kind of putting them in that role, right? So. My only concern is just he doesn't change what he's been with Brian Robinson, and Chris Rodriguez Jr. comes in and just takes over the Brian Robinson role. So
yeah, that's
slightly
totally...
hesitant.
Go ahead.
No, I was just slightly hesitant putting him over guys like Chuba that I know is going to get 20 carries. Chandler, I expect to get 15 plus. Najee, kind of the same. Jerome Ford, the same. You know what I mean? Like a little bit.
Yeah. I just think that I think it's okay even if he stays in the same role, just because of like the involvement in the receiving game. Like he's kind of a wide receiver 3 with some running back carries. You know, like I'd be surprised if he didn't get 10 carries. So, and you know, like I don't know, he's just always been involved in the passing game because he used to be a receiver. So,
yeah,
I don't mind him there as a number 2 running back.
Yeah. And then the receivers, I mean, it's really only McLaurin is the guy to talk about potentially. And it's kind of crazy that they don't have, I know it's not anymore, but Howe is leading the NFL in passing yards. I think someone's passed him at this point. And they have like no one, I don't think they have anyone on pace for 1,000 yards. Maybe McLaurin's like right there. But I don't think they have anyone in like the top 20 or 25 in receiving yards. So they're just spreading the ball around like crazy. He's the only guy I think we need to talk about at the receiver position. I mean, I know Curtis Samuel's had games here and there. I just don't think he could have a good game. I just can't trust it. So where we have McLaurin, 3 wide receiver leagues he's in because of the potential, 50 over under, 50 and a half. You want a piece of it or you want to bench McLaurin, who's been not great. He's wide receiver 39 on the year, and he's had 5 straight games under double-digit points in half PPR.
Yeah, I think McLaurin, like, yeah, he's in. Like you said, like the over/under is so high. Like, honestly, I think it kind of just the over/under almost makes the other 2, Dotson and Samuel, like. Not interesting, but kind of desperation flex territory. Like we know Dotson can take like one long one to the house kind of a thing. Like I wouldn't bank on it, you know, but for a team that passes as much as they do and for a player that plays as much as he does, like same thing goes for Samuel. Like, well, actually, yeah, no, Dotson plays way more than he does, but it's kind of funny because
Dotson's out there all the time.
Yeah, but Samuel is, he's a little more gadgety. Like they use him at the backfield and stuff. I think you can start both of those guys even too, as like a desperation flex. Like you could do worse.
Yeah, I just in the playoffs, I don't. The only problem is like in the playoffs, I don't want with no buys now. Like I can't survive a 4-point game or something like you look at Curtis Samuel, 4.5, 4.2, missed the game, 1.6, 1, 14.5, 8.5. But like he could get you 1 point. Like I wouldn't be, or 4 points. He's gotten you less than 4 times this year, out of the out of the 11 games or whatever that he's played. So that's my concern. Dotson's kind of in that same boat of just like they don't need to throw him the ball. Like we've seen games where Howe's thrown the ball 50 times and Dotson's done nothing.
Yeah.
So that's my only concern. I understand the logic though of that. I think I'm calling it now. This is McLaurin's best game of the year. I think he's gonna have a good game. Like, and that's not saying a whole lot. Like he hasn't been amazing this year. So his best game in half PPR looks to be 14.8. So I'm saying he gets over 15 points. So I think it's gonna be his best game. I just think there's like a little bit of a squeaky wheel come in.
Wasn't he like talking smack to reporters last week, saying he was just out there running cardio and stuff?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
So
and they've had a bye, and again, could be a shootout type of thing. So yeah, I like it. I like McLaurin. So McLaurin, best game of the year, and Will Levis rushing touchdown. Those are my two calls so far this week. And then Logan Thomas, any interest there?
No.
Okay. I mean, he's in that
not even a little bit.
Tucker Kraft, Chig, Freiermuth, Everett range. Like you hope to get 4 for 50 and maybe a touchdown, and then you're super happy, right? So
I think I'd rather start all those guys you just said over Logan Thomas. But yeah, like I mean, we've seen it. We've seen the consistency of him getting 4 for 40, basically. Like, so.
Yeah, and he was. I know he's been bad lately, but he's actually been really bad. Doesn't have a game over 6.5 since week 8 or since week 9. 5 games in a row, 6.5 or less. Yeah, a little bit of a desperate play there. Maybe the game of the week here: the Cowboys and the Bills. I wanted to pick.
Bills. We didn't talk about the Rams.
Oh, we didn't, huh?
Yeah.
I guess we should talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, they're pretty easy though. Like you're starting Stafford, Kyron, Kupp, and Nakua. Especially, I think Washington, aren't they like the worst, or they were for a while? They're the worst against quarterbacks, and I think that's going to feed into like everybody else, basically.
No, they're horrendous. It's like they are it says 7th. No, that's running backs. I think they are the worst, second most. But you just look at their game log, man. The only game where they haven't given up major points. There's only 2 games where they haven't given up, it looks like, 19 or more points. Mac Jones in week 9. We know about Mac Jones. And Josh Dobbs in week 1, where he was just learning the playbook. He had like a point. Other than that, they've given up 19 or more points to every quarterback they faced. They've given up over 25, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. They've given up over 30 twice. So,
even to like Desmond Ridder, Tyrod Taylor, Tommy DeVito, everyone scores on them. So easy.
Yeah. So Stafford's right outside like the Purdy, Mahomes. Right after those guys, those must-start guys, it's like Stafford's my favorite, probably out of all of them. Him and Justin Fields, like because of the matchup, I'm probably going to lean Stafford, even though I generally lean rushing quarterbacks. But and he's been playing really well. So they're all starts. Kyron, Kupp, Puka. That's why we always, last week was always why we say, how do you sit Cooper Kupp? Because he can give you 8 for 115 and a touchdown. So what he did last week. So now we'll get to the potential game of the week. In the Cowboys Bills over under 50.5. I wanted to pick the Bills. I was going to say I picked them last week against the Chiefs. Felt like they had to win to keep that season alive, and it feels like the Bills are going to make the playoffs. I don't know. I picked the Cowboys here. Who do you think wins this game? I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Yeah, I wouldn't really either. I just feel like it's hard to get away from the Cowboys right now. They've just been firing on all cylinders, just multiple touchdowns and by Dak ever since the bye week in week 7. Every single game, at least 2. A couple of those, 3 of them with 4.
You're welcome.
What?
You're welcome. It's because I said he sucked.
Yeah,
it was literally like it was the week before the Chargers game. I said he sucked, and I think that's when he started going off, right?
Yeah, like yeah, like obviously the engine's running through Dak, and that just makes the whole team good. And obviously the defense is really good as well. So I'm gonna stick with the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's fair. Should be. I hope it's a really good game. Dak must start. Pollard, you're starting. Lamb, you're starting. Ferguson, you're starting. Unless again you have one of the top guys. I guess the only question with these guys is there another receiver? I know we talked about Brandon Cooks last week, and he had been really good for a while, like kind of lining up with this stretch run. But it's also tough to trust because you can get last week because he's not getting many targets. He's had 10. Other than that, like it's been like 4 or 5 every week almost, right? So you can get a 2 for 37 like you got last week. Where are you at, Brandon Cooks? Just like a boom bust receiver. Hope he gives you, I don't know, 10, 12 points.
Yeah, basically. Like I think he's a good number 3 receiver to have in your lineup. God, I don't like brain farted there. Yeah, like I mean he's perfect. Like the over under is saying like he has a good chance of getting a touchdown. The Bills can score obviously, so they might have to like stay competitive, and that kind of means like spreading it around a little bit. So yeah, fire them up.
Yeah, definitely taking him over like a Godwin, Romeo Dobbs, Marquise Brown if he plays, like even a Deontay. I think just because I don't think the floors are that super far off, and I think the upside is just in Brandon Cook's favor, like no question almost. So
I would still take Deontay out of everyone you just said because I'd say his floor is a little bit higher, but yeah, I'm not going to argue that too much. Like I'd say Cooks has the better touchdown upside, even though Deontay's actually scored the last couple of games, I think. But
yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, and yeah, no one else, everyone else you're starting relevant.
Yeah.
That is. I was a little surprised that the Bills are favored. I know they're at home, but still a little surprised they're favored by 2 when I last looked. So interesting there. On the Bill side, it's obviously Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. I'm still rolling out James Cook, who we mentioned it last week. Since the coordinator change, they've been kind of featuring him a little bit more. So Denver was the last game of the offensive coordinator when they fired him, and then 3 straight games where you've seen Cook getting a lot more targets. He's had 3, 6, and 5 catches, and then over 15. Except for last week, he had 10, but he ran it well, 10 for 58. Tough matchup, run defense. I'm still starting James Cook though.
Yeah, I think he's hard to get away from for sure. Like the Cowboys' run defense is pretty good, but I'm just kind of looking at their game log also, like who they've been good against, and not a lot of pass catchers in that in their last, like since their bye week. I mean, they got Saquon in there, or not guys that typically profile as pass catchers, I guess. They got, I mean, Gibson, I wouldn't call him like a great pass catcher. He's fine, but like Saquon's the one that I see. But and earlier in the year, obviously, like they held Eckler to under 9 and McCaffrey, but I don't know. I think you're still starting James Cook.
Yeah, you're hoping he gets 15 touches and 4 catches, and hopefully he musters up 70 total yards, and you're okay with it. And then if he always has the touchdown opportunity in a potentially high scoring game. So, and then Diggs is a star. Gabe Davis. What do you do? I like the CBS guys that we listen to. They just shake the magic 8 ball for Gabe Davis, and that's like how they determine what they're gonna do. So I can't imagine. I imagine if you made the playoffs, like if if you have to start Gabe Davis, but you probably have better options if you made the playoffs as well. Like he can give you 0 points very easily. So I think he's done that 3 times in the last 5 games.
Yeah, 3 out of the last 5.
Zero.
I was gonna say six. Yeah, literally zero. Like,
Like, yeah, like if it was like 5 points, 6 points, it's like okay, I can maybe live with it because he gives me 6 for 105 and a touchdown. Zero. So
yeah, he's gone for less than two. If you add three more games onto that, so what is that? Out of the last eight, he's gotten two or less in four or five of them.
yeah, that's ridiculous.
So yeah, that can kill you. I mean, you were kind of talking about that, like when we were talking about the Commanders guys. It's like if you can't afford to take that, basically, that there's a good chance that there's a zero. Most likely, it won't be zero, but I mean, we would have said that last week, and it was. So
Yeah. I guess the one way you can approach this, it is an afternoon game. And so if you do have like a pivot from Gabe Davis in the afternoon games and you're looking at like, oh, this guy's going to give me 7 points floor, but I need to chase points, then maybe you can go for it. But for the most part, I'm benching him. So what about Kincaid? Are we worried about? I know he ran a lot of routes. I think he ran the most routes out of any Bills player last week. But fact is, Dawson Knox came back and Kincaid hasn't been looking good. Is it 2 games that Dawson Knox been back now? Yeah. No, just one. Just one.
Yeah.
And he didn't look good. 5 for 20. I mean, he had 5 catches, but 21 yards. So he did still have 8 targets. Are you still rolling out Kincaid?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that 5 for 21 could be a product of the Chiefs' defense in general. But yeah, I mean, still 8 targets with with Knox on the field. Still running 80% or out there for 80% of the snaps. So I'd say you can still start him for at least one more week. Keep an eye on it though, just like we said last week. Like it could be trending towards that. But I mean, one game does not make a trend. 2 games honestly doesn't really make a trend. But I know it's kind of make or break time. But yeah, I'd still feel comfortable starting him because most likely you drafted him as your second tight end, and the only reason you've been starting him is because you've lost your first one or they sucked. Like maybe you had Kyle Pitts and you have Kincaid with him, or you had Mark Andrews and Kincaid, and that's why you're starting him. So I think I'd start him over most of the streaming guys. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. The fact that he had 8 targets and 5 catches still just didn't. If he had 5 for 50, I don't think anyone would really be worried. And if you look at his game log, I don't know exactly when Dawson Knox went out. I'm going to assume it was the game against Buffalo where he had 8 targets and 75 yards, kind of his breakout game. I'm going to assume it was that game. And so when Dawson Knox was there, he wasn't getting targets. He was getting 6 was his most. He had 2 in there a couple times. He just wasn't out there enough, but now he is. So.
Yeah, it was the New England game, it looks like. That's the last one that he played, and then he missed the stretch from week 8 until last week. So
he might have left early that game. I don't know. But
yeah, 63% of the snaps in that game, so it's hard to tell.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like potentially. Either way, though, he wasn't getting the usage. So now he is and still is. Good. Did I miss anyone? Now I'm all worried about missing something. Did I miss anything there?
No, you're good.
Okay. Ravens Jags, another good game here. Over under of 42.5. Ravens are favored by -3.5. The Ravens, it's Lamar is a must start. He's kind of like, I think Zay Flowers is a must start. I don't want to spend too much time on Zay Flowers. And when we say like must start, obviously if you have like 4 receivers in the top 15, like you're starting those guys over Flowers. But to me, he's like a top 24 receiver. And so I consider that like a must start. 10 targets last week. They give him rushing attempts almost every week. At least recently they have been. Do you agree about Zay Flowers? Like basically a must start?
Yeah. I don't mind that. Like they're definitely they're getting him going again kind of thing. Like he had like the rookie lull kind of a little bit, but I mean, not really, but just, after his first game, it's like, dude, this guy is the best rookie we've ever seen in our entire lives. And then he kind of came back to earth a little bit, but not in a way that was killing you, So yeah, I'd say roll him out there.
Yeah. I mean, 18 targets in the 2 games since Mark Andrews left. is good stuff there. Are you interested in Odell Beckham at all? Who's been doing well? He's out there almost, I think, this week 70% of the snaps. No,
I,
53.
yeah, I only see 53. That's the weird part is that he's been decently productive on like not a lot of snaps, like not playing more than not even playing 60 since week 1, 60%
So
of the snaps.
it basically seems like they're using either Bateman or Aguilar as in two wide receiver sets, and the Ravens probably run a lot of having two tight ends out there or something like that. So so it sounds like three wide receiver sets he's out there. But yeah, since week 9 he's been really good. So sorry, I kind of interrupted you, but what are you doing with Odell?
Yeah, I think he's fine as a wide receiver 3, basically, or even like a high end flex. Like, he's one of those guys like you could have got off the waiver wire a couple of weeks ago to replace. Like you might be spot starting him for Nico Collins or something like that. And yeah, that's fine. Like I think he's a good guy to have, even if you're not starting him. But I'd make the case like you could definitely do worse. I'd start him over the Washington guys. Maybe not over McLaurin actually, but that one's close.
Yeah, no, yeah, it is definitely close. I mean, I was just looking at it. Odell since week 9, wide receiver 24, and that's with a bye in there. So he's averaging 11.8 half PPR points over that stretch. So he's closer to, it looks like a top 18-ish, 17 receiver. So yeah, it's been good.
I know that in one of my leagues, like he's gonna take the place of somebody if they don't play, and I can't remember who because they're a late game, I think. So you get that kind of he could be the guy that like, oh, someone got ruled inactive, even for like the afternoon games. I think are they the evening game tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, they are.
So I'm using him in that capacity for sure, and I'm okay with that, like.
Yeah, he's kind of like their deep threat. Just looking at his yards per catch, so he's only catching like 3 or 4 balls, but yeah, he's getting targeted deep, So
yeah, we know Lamar can make those throws. Like he doesn't like. It's not like it's like it's part of his toolkit for sure. Like it's not like his go-to by any stretch, But we know he can make those throws and look good doing it. So, and Odell knows how to catch them.
Yeah. Yep. Before we get into the running backs, Likely, I think is like a top 12 guy. He's 13 targets the 2 games since Andrews got hurt. So I think he's like a top 12 guy, low end tight end 1. And if you are good with that, we can get into these running backs who is it that you're starting out of the 3, really? Justice Hill is getting all the snaps, but is it Keaton Mitchell is the one to start out of the 3 at this point?
No rush attempts for Justice Hill last week, even though he started 40% of the snaps, which is weird. So maybe he's just blocking. But I know seeing that makes me like Keaton Mitchell does seem like he's like on running downs, like he's the one they're going to use. Maybe like gets the edge over Gus. But I guess it just depends on. And I'd really like to avoid the running backs this game because I know Jacksonville has a very soft secondary, and so I think Lamar's just going to throw it. Like I think we're going to get 33 pass attempts plus for Lamar, which is not. I know it doesn't sound like a huge number, but it is for him. And I think that's the way they're going to beat Jacksonville.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I want to get away from him. I mean, Gus, he's getting less carries now. Obviously, he's not scoring. Well, he didn't score a touchdown. Was it last week he didn't get the last 2 weeks he didn't get a touchdown. And only at least before, like even without the touchdowns, you were still maybe getting 6 to 8 half PPR points or maybe slightly more. But yeah, I want to avoid touchdown or bust guys who can't really give you like 10 points without a touchdown, essentially. So then, avoid them all. I think Keaton Mitchell is the one to start if you're going to start one of them. Jags, you got to talk about Lawrence. I don't know if he's like he didn't look that hurt last week because he was running around a lot. Like I don't know how
Yeah.
many rushes he had, but he was moving around a lot and he didn't look super hurt, but he had a bad game. Ravens are tough to know if they're we talked about this when they played the Chargers a couple weeks ago, where if you look at who they played, the quarterbacks they've played, they didn't really play a whole lot of quarterbacks. You know, it was
Yeah.
like Stroud, his first game of his career, Burrow on a calf injury, DTR, Pickett, Malik Willis, you know, like they did shut down a couple, but then Stafford lit them up. So where are you at with Lawrence? I know we talked about this a lot, but just one more time. Love, Wilson, Goff, Lawrence. Where do you rank those guys?
Let's see. Love Wilson. I'd rather start all three of those guys over Lawrence. So he's at the bottom. I think you're still rolling him out there if he got you this far, kind of a thing. But yeah, no, it's tough matchup. Like, yeah, he's probably not still fully healthy. He ran 3 times last week for only 11 yards, so they were probably just like really small little scrambles. But you got to give it to him, like, for playing and like for throwing 3 touchdowns. He did throw 3 picks though too. So that was kind of an issue. But yeah, I don't mind him as a low end starter this week, but yeah, I like the other guys better.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm in agreement there. Ingram, we're starting. ETN, even though he's been disappointing, we're starting.
Yeah.
And I'm still starting Ridley in most 3 wide receiver leagues. Like, 13 targets last week, only 4 catches. It was just, yeah, it was just a bad game. Like, Lawrence didn't look right, so maybe the ankle was bothering him. I don't know, but I know it's still another tough matchup. But I just can't get away from 21 targets, and we know the potential of Ridley. You know, he can give you really big performances. So if you got this far without him, in my logic in my head, it's like, well, you must have like a pretty good team, right? Because he was a 3rd, 4th round pick. You must have a good team around him. So like if he has a big game, it's like extra. It's like the cherry on top to your team, kind of.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you feeling about Ridley, like starting in 3 wide receiver leagues.
Yeah, I think so. I think that I'm just trying to imagine, like, how does Jacksonville stay competitive, and it's going to be most likely through throwing. Like, their run game isn't strong enough, I don't think. Like, Baltimore, they do have a decent set of I'm forgetting the word.
Cornerbacks.
Yeah, corners and stuff. But you know, like, I think Ridley has a good shot of being productive. So why not?
Zay Jones. 14
Yeah,
targets.
less enthused. Nice target share for sure. The last 22 targets in the last 2 weeks. So yeah, without God, I'm like still like all foggy. Yeah, without Christian Kirk out on the field, it's like he's getting like he's more involved for sure, and we know Lawrence likes him. We haven't seen the touchdowns, but it doesn't take much, I don't think, like for him to get to 10 fantasy points, I'd say.
Yeah. He's I think he's more of a stash than a start this week, just because we're not even 100% confident in like Lawrence and Ridley. We're just kind of starting them if we are more out of necessity than like sheer confidence. So yeah, 14. So what is that? 27 targets for Ridley and Zay Jones and like 9 catches. It's so bad last week, but definitely like to see that the target share. And Ingram must start. So get into the last game. Eagles, Seahawks. Over under here is 48.5. I think it's gonna be a kind of a close game. I think the Eagles win, but I think it'll be a close game. Eagles, -3. So Vegas is kind of telling you that. Hurts, we're still starting. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, we're starting. Goddard, we're probably starting for the most part. Top low end tight end 1 with the potential to be more. And I guess the biggest question is DeAndre Swift, who's been on a bit of a downward trend for a while now, I believe. Um, I could be wrong about that. It just feels like that, at least. Um, where are you at with DeAndre Swift? RB2 still?
I mean, most likely, like he's definitely the lead guy in the backfield. Like he has looked a little sluggish for sure, and it's kind of like, well, maybe we're starting to see him. You know, here we are, week 15 of the NFL season. Like, you know, guys get worn down and stuff. He's been out there a lot. He's been used a lot. You know, which wasn't necessarily how we thought. Like. Of him as a player in general, you know, like still like has the potential for explosive plays and whatnot. Although we haven't seen it for a few weeks, but I think you're still rolling him out there as like a low end number 2 guy because he is involved and he's on one of the best offenses in football. So I think you got to. The Seahawks are bad apparently against running backs too. So let's see. I mean, McCaffrey, Pollard. I mean, he's not in that category. Maybe they've actually gotten a little bit better, or I guess maybe they're just bad against like the elite guys. But they actually gave up decent points to Robinson and Gibson back in week 10. So yeah, I think you're starting them.
Yeah, and I'm just from a Eagles point of view. They've lost 2 in a row. They've gotten blown out. It feels like they want to get the run game going again. Like if you look at when the first 5-6 weeks of the season, when we thought they were the best team in the NFL, it was DeAndre Swift was running really well for 4 or 5 of those weeks, you know, and it just feels like they will kind of want to get back to that a little bit, add another layer to their offense.
Honestly,
I don't mind them.
I really think they need to get Gainwell out there a little bit more, like just to give Swift some relief, you know, like. Not because I think Gainwell's better necessarily, but like he's shown to be competent, you know, like they're just not using him quite as much. Like his snap share has kind of upticked over the last few weeks, which might mean that they're trying to spell DeAndre Swift a little bit so they can get those big plays out of him. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more to just like they were trailing and losing in the game, and he's kind of like their third down back. But yeah, that's not a terrible idea necessarily.
It's just weird. It's like DeAndre Swift isn't the third down guy. You know, like he can catch.
Yeah, he can. A lot of it's pass protection
Blocking.
too. Maybe they just feel more confident with Gainwell.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it for the Eagles. The Seahawks. I don't mind Geno over like a guy like Lawrence. Because if he's fully healthy, which I think he is, or I think he's going to play at least. And last time we saw him, he lit up the Cowboys. I think the Eagles, we talked about it, they give up the most points to quarterbacks. So still only seeing one practice in for the Seahawks for whatever reason. But I think he's going to play.
He was limited yesterday. So
okay. So yeah, hopefully he plays, and I'm fine if you want to pivot to him over Lawrence or over Tua or something, or Kyler, who are in terrible matchups. All 3 of those guys actually are in bad matchups. So I might just play the matchup game if I'm deciding between any of those.
Yeah, I was going to say, pay attention to the injury report today to see if Geno's on it, because they are the Monday night game. That's why there's only 1 out, I guess. Well, there should be 2 actually. But
yeah,
there should be 1 today, so keep an eye out.
Yeah. And then where are we at? It's tough with these running backs. Walker and I mean, I don't think we're starting Charbonnet, right? Like that's for sure. Kind of benching him at this point.
Yeah, I don't want to. I mean, honestly, you could do worse than either one of them, but I don't know. Like I think running against the Eagles is not the way they're going to stay in this game necessarily, you know. We have seen Charbonnet involved in the passing game a little bit in spurts, but it's kind of trailed off a bit since Walker's been back. Well, Walker's only been back 1 game, I guess, and he did take all all the receptions last week. So yeah, Charbonnet definitely is behind Walker, but I'm not even that excited about starting Walker either. But go ahead.
It's tough. It's tough to know because if you look back to Week 8, their 7th game of the season, Walker hasn't. He had an under 50% snap share in 3 straight games. Then he got hurt, but he was on the injury report in some of those games as well. At least 1 or 2 of them. So it's tough to know. Are they transitioning more to Charbonnet 50-50? Last week it was 56%. So are they trying to go? Because if it's Walker 70, 75%, 80%, I'm happy with Walker. If it's Walker at 60%, I'm a little like, he can still do it for sure. I'm just a little less confident against this really good run defense. Theoretically, they're good.
They did. The Eagles did give up 25 total points last week to Pollard and Dowdle, pretty evenly split. But like you said, like that game was a little out of control, and they were just running it because they didn't have to do anything else really to put the Eagles down. The Cowboys, that is. So I mean, I don't see that happening this week for the Seahawks. So yeah, like Walker as a flex, I guess, but yeah, not excited.
Walker versus James Conner in a tough matchup against 49ers, or Antonio Gibson. Like, where would you pivot there?
Yeah, I'd say Gibson. I'd say Conner too, honestly, because I'm more confident that he's gonna have more of the workload than Walker. Like, I think he's like more guaranteed to play over 60% of the snaps.
Are you going as far as like Keaton Mitchell, Singletary, Clyde with no Pacheco? Or are you just going Walker?
Maybe Singletary, but not the other two.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'd go that far with Singletary, Keaton, Mitchell, Clyde. And yeah, I'm fine with Conner, Gibson. Yeah, Gibson's a tough one. I might lean Walker over Gibson just because we assume Gibson's going to get more, but we don't know for sure. And then the receivers. Metcalf, I would want. I mean, this is again like Eagles are not a good against the pass, so I like Metcalf. I know he only had like 2 catches last week. One of them was a touchdown. We've seen what he's capable of. Feels like he could put up 34 fantasy points. Like it feels like his week 13, he should be doing that more often than not. But I don't know. But anyways, he's been actually good lately with the boom potential. So I like Metcalf. Where are you at with Lockett and JSN? Lockett had a decent game last week. JSN, not so much. Where are you at with those two guys?
Yeah, I think Lockett is basically like he's a wide receiver 3. In like we're saying game script, like they're going to be throwing against these guys because running's not going to quite do it, I don't think. So, and Lockett plays, and we've seen him be good like for years and years, and like he hasn't done it as many times this year, but he still has it to a certain extent. Like he's getting up there in age, but we're seeing flashes here and there, and this could definitely be one of his games. Like JSN, on the other hand, like he's definitely like working his way in a little bit more, but I'd like to see a little more. Like I think he's kind of a desperation flex guy as well. But yeah, I mean, you nailed like the order. It's like it's Metcalf, a huge gap, Lockett, and then a smaller but still significant gap, and then JSN.
Yeah. Yep, and it's a potential shootout. So, I'm fine with throwing Lockett in there, and even JSN in a 3 wide receiver league, if like you don't have many options, so it's not a terrible one. But yeah, anything else on this game, on this week? Excited for the playoffs?
Yeah, I am. I'm really hoping. I don't really have a lot of guys going. Like I didn't have a lot of guys going. I had no one go on Thursday in all 3 of my leagues actually, which is kind of funny. I mean, it's not that funny. I guess it's Raiders, Chargers, but yeah, like I don't have many guys going today, so I really have to wait till tomorrow to see how things are looking. But
yeah,
I don't have a lot going on this week as far as like I have a couple of bye weeks, so it's kind of like just kind of waiting, waiting for to see who I have to try and beat. I'm feel pretty confident in one league and not that confident in our league actually as far as like what next week's going to bring, but I'll see if there's anything I can do to try and help that this week.
Yep. You never know who could pop up on the waivers. So, yeah, we'll finish there. As always, like and subscribe. We'll be back with the recap on Monday. Catch you then.